We are ready to rock and roll. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Paul Wesley, the Moment of Truth show. I have a very special guest today, Mr. Stewart Swerdlow. Some of you may know him, and maybe some of you may not. He's an amazing man, and it's an honor having him on the show today. Stewart, how are you?
I'm fine, Paul. Thanks for having me on the show.
Thanks so much for being here. Stewart, can you tell some of the viewers a little bit about yourself and what you experienced?
Yes, well, it's a very long story, but I was involved from 1970 to 1983 in the Montauk Project, which I'm sure many of your listeners may have heard about. And if not, there are many books out there. One of them I wrote, Montauk Alien Connection. And actually, this month of February, there will be the release of the Montauk Chronicles movie, which will delineate all the information about that project. And of course, my family background is a bit interesting. My great uncle Yakov Sverdlov was the first president of the Soviet Union. His son, Alexei, initiated the KGB many decades ago. And in fact, my other uncle, Benjamin Sverdlov, actually helped to finance the Russian Revolution in 1917 with the help of American bankers. And he returned to the Soviet Union in the 1930s, was actually initiated mind control projects in the Soviet Union, which in my opinion, was one of the earliest mind control projects in the last century. So my grandmother was a Soviet spy during World War II. My grandfather was actually sent to Great Britain to help start the Communist Party, and then he was sent to the United States to also do the same thing. And then here I am, descendant from all of that.
That's amazing. And do you obviously, I mean, I've seen a lot of your work. You've time traveled. You're really experiencing other dimensional beings or extraterrestrial races, and also with mind control. It's kind of hard to really, for the average person who knows nothing about what's going on, other than the fact that the government may be messed up, or we may be poisoned through Monsanto, our food, our air, or whatever. Where does all this fit into extraterrestrials? Are they involved in all this?
Well, in my work, in my books, in my videos, I talk a lot about that topic. And this planet was colonized by alien beings a long time ago, and in fact, all humans are alien to this planet. So, in effect, we are all aliens here. None of us developed here naturally. And so it was all a genetic manipulation. It was a gigantic project of colonization, etc. And so aliens have been here since the beginning of world history. And they're still here. So when people talk about the Earth being invaded, well, it's all been done.
Right. Now, you I think in your work you said a lot about there was a war with the Atlanteans on the humans that were on the Atlantic side, right, and the reptilians that were on the Pacific side of the ocean. And
well, in those days, there wasn't the oceans like we have now. The reptilian beings from the Draco star system colonized a large continent in what is now the Pacific Ocean, which, depending on the culture, it was called Lemuria or Mu, and it was much, much later that human colonization occurred in what is now the Atlantic area on a continent that was called Atlantis, which many of you, of course, have heard of. And reptilians and mammalians aren't really designed to live in the same environment and the same location, and so, of course, there were battles between the two of them. The Atlanteans had technology which was able to manipulate the geomagnetic forces of the Earth. And during the war process, which occurred over many centuries, it wasn't a quick thing, they broke up the continent of Lemuria and sank beneath what now became the Pacific Ocean. And then many millennia later, the Atlanteans, through their own technology and manipulations of the Earth, caused the destruction of their own continent, which sank in what became the Atlantic Ocean. And to this day, we still see remnants of those civilizations. And in recent years, and in fact in the last few months alone, on conventional news, they're talking about finding cities or towns way below the ocean, on the ocean floor. Artifacts are being found. So little by little, the powers that be are releasing the information about all of this, and slowly but surely will reveal information. But of course, what they reveal is what they want people to know. It may not be the exact truth of the entire history.
Now, I think I've heard you say that the humanoids actually killed off the dinosaurs, which was the main food source for these Draconians or reptilian race at the time, which in turn drove them underground.
Well, during the process of the battles between the two races, the Atlanteans did destroy what we would call dinosaurs, and of course that led to more war. In fact, the Indian Vedas talk about this. They talk about the Vimanas that flew in the air. They talk about the fiery lances and explosions, which we would, the way they were described in the Vedas, we would know them as nuclear explosions. Yes, they killed off the dinosaurs. Of course, the theory, the conventional theory, is that a huge asteroid hit the Gulf of Mexico, and that caused the destruction of all the dinosaurs. But of course, if something that large hit the Earth and did that, we wouldn't be sitting here now talking.
Exactly, and I kind of look at like what's going on with humanity now. Monsanto, the crops, the air, everything's poison, and at least a year ago, I kind of got this suspicion that, well, how do we know that they're not actually making a comeback and destroying our food source to knock us out of the game? What do you think about that?
Well, my opinion is, and what I know about history, the reptilians, and to go back to what you said earlier, when Lemuria sank, many of the reptilians took refuge in the inner Earth, and a lot of people aren't aware that the Earth does have a hollow section, and I write about this in my Blue Blood book. I talk about the science of that planetary theory of why there is a hollow Earth, and between the inner mantle and the outer mantle, there's also cavernous areas where reptilians took refuge, and that really began the legends of hell under the earth, or demons that live under the earth. It was from the reptilians that migrated down there, those who survived the destruction. And so over many eons of time, they kind of worked their way back up. They hybridized humanity, which is why humanity has reptilian genetics now. And so they've always been here. They've always been manipulating. And so what we're seeing now with the chemicals and the changes in the food, that's just another stage in their process of controlling the planet. In fact, interestingly, with the recent revelations by Snowden, who's worked at the NSA, one of the documents he released said that DARPA is very well aware of a very intelligent race that lives under the earth. So that's being revealed as well. Little by little, the information is coming out.
So, are we? What do you think the status is of not only the reptilians but any other species that's here on Earth, or like you said, we have reptilian DNA in us and stuff like that. So, are we at war with these beings? Are we working with these beings? Are we being kind of modified so we can be taken to some kind of galactic war somewhere else? I mean, what's the status of what's going on with these reptilians?
Well, that's again a very large question.
Yeah.
The reptilians, again, they've always been in control, so it's not like they just took control. They're trying to get control. They've always been in control, and of course, many of you have read the books with David Icke, and talks about the shape-shifting reptilians and all of that, and that is true. And so many of the elite do have that capability and do defer to reptilian control systems. And so the point is, or the bottom line is, they're trying to create a race of slaves, of robotical people, even cyborgs, where there's mind control and programming 100% across the planet. Nobody questions anything. Everybody does what they're told. And in that way, these elite can create a new civilization, a new empire, where they use the Earth as its main headquarters or capital. And then they fan out into the rest of the galaxy and the universe to continue their system of control. Now, this is why there is such interest in this planet from outside, because the Earth technically in the near future could become a threat to other civilizations. I always use the analogy that right now, this planet Earth is kind of like the Iraq of the galaxy. And I use this in quotes. Others want to liberate the planet, the way we liberated, supposedly, Iraq, which of course is a mess. And so what kind of a mess will be left here? There's a lot of interference, and I write in my work, there are so many civilizations out there. When you think about the tens, hundreds of billions of star systems that are out there, and if even 0.1% have intelligent life, that's quite a lot of civilizations out there. And then when you extrapolate that interdimensionally, like we learned at the Montauk Project, where there are infinite universes, both physical and non-physical, the number of civilizations and species is mind-boggling. You can't even comprehend how many are out there. So it's quite a mess, and it's very intricate and complicated, more so than the political situations on the surface of the planet. There's only just under 200 countries on the planet, but there are millions of civilizations out there.
Exactly. Exactly, Stewart. What do you feel? I mean, the moon is a topic that a couple of people wanted me to bring up. Some people think it's a soul-catching machine, that when we die, our souls are pretty much projected to the moon, and where our memories are stripped, and we are recycled back to planet Earth. Have you heard anything about that?
Yes, I've heard of that. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think it isn't quite like that. There's many different possibilities. When a person passes on, depending on their mind patterns and the frequency of their soul personality, they would progress into other non-physical realities, and then perhaps reincarnate somewhere else. But then there are others who are under very heavy mind control, and those people are usually I don't like to use the word captured, but they're sequestered upon the physical death, and then the soul personalities are put into another body, whether it's artificial or natural or hybrid. So there's many different possibilities. The moon, as I've written in my work, is an artificial object. The moon is actually brought here from another solar system or galaxy, and that's been verified even by NASA. They said the moon did not come from the solar system, and it's artificial. When you send a sonic resonance to the surface of the moon, it pings like a hollow object. It doesn't thump like a solid object. And so this was the vehicle through which the reptilians actually came to this world and colonized it from the moon. So yes, there's a lot going on up there. Some governments do have bases up there. There is interaction with alien beings. It's been for decades. It's nothing recent. And the moon does have a control system, but I cannot say that it is the only method through which souls are recycled. No, that depends on the individual, the programming and mind control, the genetics, etc.
So, I mean, it could be going on anywhere, underground bases, anywhere. Another thing I wanted to ask you was, now you've actually time traveled, correct?
Yes, I was at the Montauk Project.
What do you have you ever traveled to where we're at now, maybe a little further, and seen anything?
My work there was limited in the time travel. I was sent more towards the past.
Okay.
However, there were others who I was not involved and who were sent to the future. But here's the thing. When we get into time travel, we learn that you cannot change the past or the future because there are infinite parallel realities where everything does occur. So anything you can think of, any situation you can imagine, it is happening in some reality somewhere. So there's simultaneous existence. It's not really linear like we're led to believe. All existence, all time is simultaneous. It's an illusion here on the physical reality. So when we look to the future, there are infinite possibilities depending on what decisions are made in the present moment. So that's why if someone says, I saw the future and this happened, well, that's one possibility. There's, 10,000 other possibilities.
Right. So that just goes to show, okay, we're living in this reality right now where people, they can say, well, it's fear, 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 fright, fright, fright. But yet there's other realities where, who knows, there could be realities where, World War II was won by Nazi Germany, or so that, exactly. So, I mean, even though things are going bad in this existence now, to say, in another dimensional reality, it's totally different. And that kind of brings...
That's correct. In Montauk, they learned that there were parallel Earths where Atlantis still existed, where the Nazis did win the war, where Earth never had civilization, and so on and so on. Everything that you could think of existed.
So what's the point of fear? There is no point,
Well, that's correct. We have to concentrate on the present moment.
Right.
Because what we do in the present moment affects everything else. And so it is my opinion that it doesn't matter what happened in the past, it doesn't matter what you think will happen in the future, because all of that is relative. You must concentrate on what you're doing at the present moment.
I mean, so that's amazing, because that opens up doors to limitless possibilities. And I think that a lot of people who don't understand how universe works or how energy works, about thought manifestation works, can kind of, if not grasp it, look into your work and really look it up. A lot of people say the Greys, the Zeta Reticulates are going to come, and they're going to, be hybrids with humanity and save us. And I think, I personally, on a personal level, think that whether you're a hybrid or not, or human or reptilian, we shouldn't look for saviors to come down and save us. And it seems like a lot of the New Age, not all, but some New Age groups think that that we should be saved and not save ourselves. How do you feel about that?
Well, I write about that a lot in my books, and the New Age was created by the United States government in 1965, ordered to create a new world religion, to lead up to a staged alien invasion, to create a staged second coming of Christ. It was a way to divert people's attentions, and so that they don't know what's going on behind the scenes, because while they're waiting for the Space Brothers to save them, then something else is going on that they're not paying attention to. And one of my favorite scenes in the movie was from the movie Independence Day, when all the New Age people were on the rooftop and the big UFO, welcome Space Brothers, rapture us, and they were the first ones blasted away. That was a very big message to the New Age people. And look, I have nothing against them, but they need to realize that what they're believing in is all government mind control.
And they never seem to press self-empowerment. It's always give away your power to these love and light entities. And we need to realize that if we are, if the people who are calling the shots are this reptilian race who want nothing but total control, I think that if I was a reptilian and I seen people who I thought were slaves decided to empower themselves and not look for higher dimensional beings, I would respect that. I would kind of say, you know what, do your thing. I'm going to leave you be and ascend and get off this prison planet, because if they're a warrior race like I think they are, if I was one, I would respect that. And I really don't have a lot of respect for people who choose not only not to empower themselves, but to manipulate others not to also,
Yeah. And part of my work, I do say that we each have to take responsibility both individually and as a species, because the reason that we have this problem is because the human race has a foundational victimization mind pattern. And when you have that kind of victimization, you attract tyrants and oppressors and that kind of thing. So if each one of us was to work our own mind patterns and release all the negativity and the abandonment issues and the self-sabotage and the self-punishment, all these mind patterns that are circulating in our thoughts, if we get rid of it, then those other powers cannot do anything to us, because we would not reflect that out and we wouldn't have those experiences.
What about the lion people and the Pleiadians? Have you heard or seen these beings?
Well, the Pleiadian issue, again, was a creation of the government to create these space brothers, or those who would come and help us, and most of that information is not correct. If we look at the Pleiadian star system, we know that it is actually younger than our own star system, and that no life developed there.
Wow, that's...
And so as far as you mentioned lion people, I believe?
The Larians or Vegans, the lion-looking cat-faced people?
Yeah, there are beings who are Leonesque, and there's more than one type. And again, I write about that in my work. We see depictions of them in ancient Egypt and other civilizations, and yes, they are a civilization. There are races like that, but there are other kinds of races as well. There were a lot of insect races, a lot of races that are reptilian. So there's everything out there that you can imagine.
Even human-looking beings, or no?
Oh yes, in fact, there are such human-looking extraterrestrial beings that you may be sitting next to them on a train or on a plane, and you wouldn't even know that they were not from Earth.
We may be talking to someone right now in the interview. I mean,
you never know.
You really never, you never know. But, and I think that when we stop judging people by the way they look, and really judging people by the energy that you get from the person, that's when the real magic happens. Because I mean, honestly, I've seen someone shapeshift to reptilian form. I've talked about this before on other radio shows. I've seen them in dream state, and it takes some getting used to. But but you learn when you learn to just not look with your eyes, but look with your heart. And I think that until humanity as a whole can adopt that mentality and practice it, that no one's going to really have full disclosure, because you would have mass panic.
Well, that's true. I think that a lot of people would panic if they learned the truth suddenly. Which is why, as you see now on conventional news, even CNN and AOL and BBC, all these major global services, every week, sometimes almost every day, you'll see a story revealed about some kind of paranormal subject, a UFO, what have you, and they actually treat it seriously, whereas years ago, they'd make fun of it and ridicule the person who talked about it. But now they're purposely promoting it, because they're trying to get the population to the phase where they will just accept whatever is presented to them.
Now, as far as the Greys are concerned, are they our galactic buddies, or are they just pretty much slave AIs? And because I mean, it seems that there's this Grey worship going on in the UFO community nowadays, and people just again choose not to empower themselves. But what's going on with the Greys?
Well, I write about this in my Blue Blood book, and I have a new book coming out called True World History, where I talk about it as well. The Grey race, or the little Greys, the 3 and 4 foot beings, they are manufactured. They are not a natural race. And in fact, if you were to take a picture of gray and put it next to the picture of a human fetus, you could not tell them apart. And that is because most of them are human fetuses that have been grown to larger proportions and then created as cyborgs to work as slaves for the reptilian races and even for the U.S. government.
What about the tall ones, the tall Zetas?
Now the tall ones, or the ones who are 7, 8 feet tall and so forth, and those are created by the beings from Sirius A. And they actually have a homeworld in the Vega star system. They seem to be a little bit more benevolent, but the bottom line is most of the beings out there have their own agenda. Nobody is here to uplift the human race or to save us from anything. They're here to control and manipulate. If they were going to save us, they should have done it a hell of a long time ago.
And, this is coming from someone who, you've been doing this for a really long time. You've been working with the government for a really long time, and you know what you're talking about. And the sad thing is, Stewart, is that a lot of people are going to, not want to hear what we have to say, and they're going to continue pushing their poppycock BS information out on the web. But, it's great hearing it from someone like you who has a lot of experience and is telling it how it is. What do you think about what's going on with a lot of the uprisings in the world, the revolutions, the FEMA camps in America? What do you think? Are people just biting into the fear, or should we be afraid but at the same time unite in a non-compliant, non-violent way?
Well, we should never be afraid, because fear opens up the crown chakra and the pineal chakra to allow more control in, and that's why the news services and the government, military, they promote fear, because they want people to open up the mind so they can be controlled. All of these so-called uprisings, the Arab Spring and the riots in Greece and now Bosnia, all over the place, these are fomented by intelligence services in order to change governments to acquiesce to the New World Order. Quite honestly, I've been to just about every country in the world, and I was in Syria and Egypt and Libya, and those countries were actually quite stable, and the people had things that they needed. Even Libya, they had amazing education, everyone had a job, and we, the U.S., are the ones who put Gaddafi in power. We put all these leaders in power. So then all of a sudden, when the next phase comes along, we classify them as terrorists or dictators that have to be removed, and then the intelligence services go in and they actually pay people to start uprisings. When you looked at what happened in the square in Cairo and Egypt, and you see all these people rioting and setting fires and against the government, you have to remember, there's 80 million people in Egypt. How many people did you think were in that square? A few thousand that were paid by intelligence services, and most of the civil disorder was confined to limited areas. But the media, the news media, never showed you what was going on outside of that area. It just made it seem like the whole country was up in arms, and that isn't that way.
Right.
Same thing in Syria. Why is Assad still in power? Why are the Russians protecting him? Yes, the Russians do have a lot of financial interest in Syria, but Syria was a very stable country, and the people were not put down the way the news services would report. Most of the so-called insurgents are not from Syria. In fact, if you were to listen to the videos and hear the languages that are being spoken by these so-called rebels, not even Arabic. They're speaking in Kazakh language, in Russian language, Persian language. They're not Arab. And in fact, that's what happened with the issue in Benghazi when the consulate was attacked there and the ambassador was going. You have to think, why was the U.S. ambassador in Benghazi when the capital is Tripoli? What was he doing in Benghazi? And information has come out that he was actually looking for so-called terrorists or insurgents from other countries and hiring them to go to Syria and cause problems. And when some of the people in Libya found out about it, they got very upset. And this was going to be exposed, and that's why the U.S. did not send in any help to save him, because they figured to save him he might say something, so let him die. So now, dead men tell no tales, as they say.
Right. Do you think our world leaders, Stewart, are reptilians?
No, not all of them. I mean, there are some and some not, but you have to remember we are all part reptilians. Humans have between 5 and 15% reptilian DNA. That's just standard.
But I mean, like, shape-shifting wise, like 50-50 split.
Yeah, there's not that many of those. People think, all the elites are shapeshifters. They are not. There's only a very small percentage that have the 50-50 split that can actually shapeshift. But the truth is, human beings only use 3% of their DNA capacity and less than 10% of the brain capacity. So if you were to open up larger percent of your DNA, you would all be able to shapeshift.
Right. Do you consider yourself a hybrid, Stewart?
We're all hybrids. You're a hybrid. I'm one. Everyone is.
Right. Well, there you go. That pretty much answers that.
Well, can I say something here?
Sure.
And listeners can prove it to themselves. Look at how a human fetus is developed in the womb. For the first 6 to 8 weeks, it's reptilian. It's an androgynous reptilian being. And then, after those 6 to 8 weeks, then mammalian genetics open up to create more of a human-looking form. But in the beginning, we are all created as reptilians, and that's because in the beginning, our DNA foundation is reptilian, and that's when human genetics were added to it. And that's described actually in the Bible when it says, let us make man in our own image. Well, who's the us and the our if there's only one God? That was the experiment between humans and reptilians who are fighting that said, well, we'll make peace, we'll create a new species that's a mix of both of us, and then we'll have peace between us. But of course that didn't work out. But that's the foundation of human beings right now. We're both mixed reptilian and mammalian.
Do you think that? What do you think about the issues with the FEMA camps and the drones? Is this a possibility for the future? I mean, or is this like just fear mongering?
Well, it's a little of both. The drones, yes, that's part of the control system to make sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing. But as far as the FEMA camps are concerned, look, the United States is 330 million people. Do you think they're going to put that many people in camps? It's not going to happen.
Right.
There may be camps for people who are considered dissidents or rebels or need to be re-educated, but certainly they're not going to have mass shipments of people to camps. It's just not possible. They don't have enough people to monitor that. So they're working more on the mind control and programming through satellite transmission and cell phone tower, television and radio, all these ways that they use to control people. That's what they concentrate on.
Amazing. So you think that the mind control is pretty much their ace up their sleeve, what they're doing?
Well, they've already been successful. The Earth is surrounded by satellites. We're bombarded by ELF and microwave 24/7. Everyone is getting programmed, while they're sitting and having lunch. It's a standard daily activity.
Wow, is there any way to escape the mind control? I mean, what can we do? People that are like,
that's what my work is about. Right. If you look at my work, I talk about how you deprogram, how you protect yourself. It's a massive techniques that I have in my books and in my videos, and that's what I do. I teach people how to deprogram, but you have to do it. No one can do it for you. Each person has to learn how to do it, and they have to want to do it.
Do you think, I'm going to have to pick up one of these books, and I recommend everyone who hears this too, because whatever can help would be really great, especially to a lot of people who don't know, you know?
And it's a critical time period because I believe in the next year or so, they are going to create the staged alien invasion to make people think the world is being invaded, when it will really be from the Blue Beam Project and the HARP Project that are going to create holographic images. You know, and that actually was developed by the Nazis, and Werner von Braun on his deathbed in the United States said that was Hitler's last goal. And the Americans took all the Nazi war criminals and brought them here and picked up where they left off.
So you think it's going to be a staged alien invasion, but then what? What happens after that?
Well, that's Paul, very good question, because it is my belief that yes, they may do this staged alien invasion, and people will think that we're, you know, and then they'll bring in the savior race, which will be the reptilians, who will come here and chase away the attackers, and then tell the humans that we are their children and they created us, and then so on and so on. But I do believe that ultimately there will be another real invasion, and that one will be very different, and that's a whole nother category.
That's a whole another radio show for that one?
Yes, and listeners can go on my site, expansions.com, and look up what I talk about in Kuiper Belt. The Kuiper Belt, which is the area that surrounds the solar system, which NASA has been saying that something is building up there, and I talk about it in my work, and that, I think, will be the source of the real invasion.
Stewart, I think I seen that you said Planet X was destroyed.
Yeah, 2003.
They destroyed Planet X.
Which was Nibiru. It wasn't Planet X. It was Nibiru, which, as you know, circled our solar system every 3,600 years. It was helped to the development of the Sumerian civilization and the black race in Africa. All these things are already detailed. But there was a Stargate underneath Baghdad. And this Nibiru, or Planet X, whatever you want to call it, was coming into the solar system. And I'll never forget, in the beginning of year 2000, in the New York Times was an article about this object that was traveling in a reverse order of the rest of the planets, and there was expected to be in the vicinity of the Earth sometime at the end of 2003. Well, you know, the U.S. created these particle beam accelerators, and they had one that they have on the one of the moons of Jupiter, and as the Planet X or Nibiru passed by, it was destroyed. And if you look up the NASA SunCam for 2003, 2004, 2005, you will see huge chunks of something flying into the sun. And you'll also note that ever since that time, the Earth has been almost bombarded by meteors and asteroids that they said they didn't see coming. This is the debris that's been floating around. And then they invaded Baghdad that month that this happened, so that any of those who escaped through the Stargates would be captured underneath Baghdad. And you know, when we invaded Iraq in 91, and again in 2003, first place they went was Baghdad. It just rolled right in. No one stopped them. They went right to the Baghdad Museum, took all of the artifacts that would prove all of this, and they were all stolen and missing to this very day.
Now, you said they were trying to escape through the Stargates. Stewart, who was trying to escape through the Stargates?
The beings, the Anunnaki that it talked about, David Icke talks about them, others talk about them, Zachariah Sitchin spoke about them. Yes, they were the ones who were coming back towards the Earth on a schedule. It's just like a 3,600-year schedule. And they came back, they were on their way back, and the Illuminati did not want them here, and they destroyed them.
Wow, this is a first. so the ones, the great Anunnaki everyone hears about, they are pretty much no more now.
Well, there have been survivors, and I know that some of them are in the Kuiper Belt.
Wow. So you think that maybe that after the staged invasion, they might want to come back for little paybacks?
Well, let's put it this way. Those who are in the Kuiper Belt, and it's not just one race, it's many, many races. You can consider it like United Nations force, analogy-wise, and they're interested in removing the Illuminati. Nobody is looking to destroy the Earth. That's not going to happen. If that were so, we wouldn't be here now anymore.
Well, how can you covertly remove the Illuminati? How does someone do that?
How does what? Sorry?
How do you covertly remove the Illuminati?
Well, the Illuminati know about what's going on out there, and I think they're running pretty scared, and that's why they're making a lot of slip-ups. Like Snowden, and the other one, forgot his name, but became a woman, then he revealed information, and people like in WikiLeaks, that he's held up in the embassy in London. All of these, are sabotage to the Illuminati. And so I think there's a lot of infighting with the Illuminati. We're seeing it now politically, and it's an opportunity for us to do our work mentally, so that then the cracks that are opened up can be widened and they can be removed.
Stewart, do you ever get death threats for the knowledge that you know?
Oh, for goodness sake, I'm threatened every day of my life.
I mean...
You have no idea. You have no idea the sabotage.
Right.
Sometimes the people who are even close to me, who I trusted, and it turned out to be saboteurs. Yes, this is well documented all the time. I
mean, you would think that. I mean, I'm sitting here and I'm hearing this amazing information coming from one like yourself that is you're accredited. You have... There's no discrediting what you say. I mean, it's just a matter of getting it out to people, and shaking them a bit and saying, okay, listen, the reality that you thought was reality really isn't reality. Yeah, because you would think that you would get death threats. Another question would be, now we talk about time travel. We can go back in the past, and the reptilians have been controlling this planet for thousands and thousands of years. Do you think like people like me or like yourself, like I'll do the activism and I'll mix it with universalism, and you do all your amazing work. Do you think that maybe they have seen this in another reality and kind of place people like girlfriends or wives or friends into our lives periodically to kind of knock us off course? Is that a possibility?
Oh, it's not a possibility. It's a method of operation. Yeah.
Because I've noticed this. Like certain people would be in your life and say, "Oh, well, Paul, you can't go to Colorado this month because you have to do this," or it put you in a position to where you're in an awkward situation to where you don't do what you want to do. Is this is this true, or is this me thinking crazy?
It's the story of my life, Paul.
I tell people all the time, I say, I'm completely insane for humanity and any other race that's positive. Do I think I'm crazy? I don't think I'm crazy at all. I just think I think on a different, level than most people. And one of the reasons why I wanted you on the show was because it's a must in my mind to mix universalism with, with everything and get it out there with these people that are in activism. Because right now their mind is focused on, well, they're just poisoning the air, which is true, or, well, they're poisoning water, which is true. But until you realize the universal aspect of thought manifestation and positive thinking, and nothing's going to change, is it, Stewart?
That's right.
That's right. Protesting is not going to mean a damn thing, is it?
We each, like I mentioned earlier, we're each responsible for everything that we experience in our lives. Mm-hmm. And I like to use the analogy that the thoughts are like film, the brain is the projector, and physical reality is the screen. So if you don't like the movie that's playing around you got to change the film, which is the way that you think. So if we change our mind patterns and only project out, positive, benevolent ideas and concepts, then that's what we will experience. So in my work, I teach people to do release work, to grow up the child within, to connect to the God mind within, and to be who you really are supposed to be, rather than the controlled person, the fragmented, programmed personality that the government is creating. So we need to really get to our core, reintegrate. I'm not one who is a proponent of, standing in the street and waving, weapons or anything like that. That makes you a target, and that's just a negative way of doing it. The real revolution has to start in the mind.
Amazing.
We have to fight against our own negative thoughts, and then remove those, and then we won't have the external representation of the negative anymore.
So we think positive, Stewart. Are we going to be? Is there a bed assigned for us in a FEMA camp, or are we the selected few that they're going to round up or now?
Well, we can create whatever we want to create for ourselves. So if people out there are fearful of going to a FEMA camp and fearful of people not, then that's what they're going to experience. But if you don't acknowledge that, if you X that out, do not even dwell on that and replace it with something positive, then that's what you'll experience.
Well, on another hand, if we look at like Fukushima and what's going on in the water and other things, I mean, should we just not think about that, or should we think about okay, it's happening, but we're going to make it better? How should we do that?
It's interesting because I'm going back to Japan in May to examine all of that. And I just recently, in fact, this past week, had an interview I did with the Iradia couple, which your listeners may have heard of. I interviewed them originally in Moscow a year and a half ago, and now they're in Czech Republic. And I interviewed them, and they have a whole different perspective on Fukushima and Chernobyl and all the radiation from their perspective. And I'm not saying it's I won't agree or disagree. I'm investigating. They're saying that radiation is actually an intelligent entity, and that in certain levels can actually help mankind. And if we think about it, there's always natural radiation around us all the time. There are other people I speak to who told me that Fukushima was artificially created in order to create damage. Others tell me no, it was done on purpose to upgrade humanity. I mean, there's every theory out there. So do we have to concentrate on that? Do we have to think, oh my God, the radiation is coming, we're all going to die? No, because again, if you project out that you're healthy, you're strong, that nothing is going to disturb you, nothing will disturb you.
I have to ask these questions because I don't have to, but I like to ask them because the answer that you just gave right now, is what really needs to be heard. And this is stuff that a lot of people would want to ask, because a lot of people, as you know, are living in fear right now, fear of vaccines, fear of this, fear of my girlfriend's going to leave me, whatever, so, and again, there's no discrediting this man. Pick up his books, do the research. And the thing is, like I tell everyone, Stuart, I say, don't believe anything that I say or you would say. Do your own homework. Take what you can from what we say, and then go out and do your own homework. And whatever you don't like, throw away. Stuart, do you have a message for humanity? What's your message for the future, for the people of now?
What if I were to tell people, first of all, I agree with everything you just said, do your own research, find out for yourself, and, I could tell you all kinds of things, but if you don't want to accept it, it's not going to help or change anything. So everyone must do their own work. What I would say, and it's just really emphasizing what I've already said, and that is you must go within your own mind, clear out the junk, put in what you want to be in there, and take control of yourself. Because if you don't, someone else is going to do that, and they are doing that. So work on your DNA, work on your mind pattern, fix up your body, make yourself the most perfect person you can be in spiritually, physically, and in every way. And then the future will be wonderful. And it's interesting because if you go to certain countries, and sometimes they're poor and they're damaged, and yet in the same country There are wealthy people living wonderful lives, and then just a few kilometers away is a horrible poverty. Well, it's the same place. What's the difference? The difference was the way the people think. You can think, I must live like this in poverty, or you could think, I deserve everything in the universe, and I can attract it. And that's fine, because God's mind allows all things. It'll give you whatever you want, good or bad. So why think bad thoughts? Why think negative thoughts? Think wonderful things. You deserve everything that you can attract to yourself.
Amazing. And I'm going to leave this on a closing note, everyone. This is Stewart Swerdlow. It was great having him on. Again, Google Stewart Swerdlow, YouTube Stewart Swerdlow, what is it, what your website, Stewart?
Expansions.com.
Expansions.com. Get the books, because I'm really thinking about buying a couple. Thank you so much, Stewart, for being on the show.
Thank you, Paul. It was a wonderful show, and you're a wonderful host.
And please don't hang up. 1 second.
Okay.
Yeah, Stewart.